The tools for achieving your wellness goals are right outside your door. You just have to know where to look, and I'm here to help. I'm Missy, an East Texas Christian herbalist, here to share conversations about local plants, where to find them and what to do with them, local vendors, the area's top sources for natural health products, and local practitioners, the professionals you can trust to get to the root of whatever you face. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or live more in step with the land, you're in the right place. Welcome. When I have a guest, I usually start by welcoming them, but today, I don't know, maybe we should just grunt, because joining me is the herbal world's favorite caveman, Mark Merriwether Vorderbruggen. Mark spent years reminding us that the grocery store isn't the only pantry and the pharmacy isn't the only medicine cabinet, and the weeds that we're constantly trying to kill just might be there to feed us instead. He's a forager, an herbalist, a teacher, an author, a storyteller with a knack for making ancient skills feel practical in the modern world, and he's had a huge impact on my herbal journey as well, which I'll share in just a little bit. So today we're going to wander off a little off the beaten path, and I'm excited to get started. Thank you, Mark, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm touched that I've had such an influence on you. I guess I'm just a guy that eats things he finds on the ground. I'm not used to this much attention. So.
Well, the people who know you think you're a pretty big deal. Tell us how you came. Tell me a little bit of your origin story. How did you come to know so much about foraging?
Okay, it kind of goes back to my parents and even my grandparents. Both my parents were children of the Great Depression, and one of the ways they got through that terrible time was through the knowledge of wild edible plants. It was still common knowledge back then. My mom hates the fact that I teach these classes. She's horribly embarrassed by it. She goes, "Oh, they'll know we were poor." It's like, Mom, that's okay. My older brother is 10 months older than me. My younger brother is 13 months younger. My parents quickly figured out the only way they were going to survive us is if they took us out into the woods every day and just ran us ragged. And of course, 3 growing boys, we were constantly starving. And so they say, well, if you're hungry, go eat that, go eat that, go eat that. And I became fascinated that there was all this food around us. And it started me on my path. I devoured every book I could growing up on that, which was basically, the Boy Scout Handbook, a military survival guide, and the Grape Nuts guy. Suddenly, Yule Gibbons. But it was enough to set me on my path. Mm-hmm. From there, it became a mishmash of things. As you know, my training was medicinal chemistry. My plan was to become a pharmaceutical scientist. I focused on natural products. I have this deep love and kind of a slight understanding of what's around us. But Pfizer really wasn't interested in that. The oil industry was. So I ended up coming down to Houston, working for the oil industry for 14, 16 years during the day. But at night, I discovered there was this demand for my knowledge. And so I spent my evenings and weekends out teaching people, what's around them, reconnecting them to nature. And from there, it just exploded to where we are today. Like you said, books, podcasts, teaching in person, foraging Texas, all this sort of stuff is just, in the end, me trying to reconnect people to nature. Because one thing I've really figured out is, there's a thing called zoochosis. And it's what they assign to animals trapped in a zoo in an unnatural ecosystem where the animals just start pacing, and it basically shows signs of mental illness and physical illness. A lot of the modern issues are due, in my opinion, to the fact that we are so disconnected from the world that we evolved in, that humans themselves are now suffering this zoochosis sort of issue. And so my goal is to just help people and kind of rewild them a bit. In a nutshell, no pun intended.
Yeah, I love that. When quite a few years ago, we bought 45 acres in the country, and I'd never had land. I'd never lived in the country. And, so I was doing like chickens and gardening and things. And I thought, you know what? I want to figure out how to walk outside my door and pick stuff that I can do stuff with. And so I started looking at, what's a good book. And your foraging, your book Foraging was
so many people said was a good guide, especially for Texas, since you are based in Texas, especially. So I ordered it, and it came in the mail, and I like flipped through, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to walk outside, and I'm going to stay out there until I find something that, you know, that I can identify and that maybe I can use. And so I walked out the door, and I didn't go far before there was this, you know, flower that kind of like a yellow firework going off. It was summer going into fall. And so I thought, I think I saw that in there. So I flipped through the book, and it was goldenrod. And so I cut it, and I brought it home, and I made a tea with it. And it was just like goldenrod is such a penetrating plant and an immediate impact. And so it just kind of blew my mind. Yeah. And so that was where I really started. And then the second part later on, some years later, I followed you at that point. And some years later, I saw you had posted a short video where you said, consider being the village healer. And I don't know why, but that stuck in my head. And your Village Healer Initiative, listeners, it's still available. You can get on and view it. And it really walks you through a lot of basics and into not so basic. But I thought, village healer. And so that was when I started studying to be a clinical herbalist, and that brought me to where I am now. So that's two major parts of my herbal journey. But getting back to you. So as I've followed you, last year I saw a video, or maybe it was just a static post, but you sounded like you had one hard thing happen after another, and you sounded pretty discouraged. And it also sounded like the future of Foraging Texas and what you do as a teacher seemed like it was in question. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I can, and because since that thing, it's been a rough time. So back in 2020, I and a gentleman by the name of Stephen Skiff started Medicine Man Plant Company, an herbal medicine business where I was the medicine man and Stephen was the businessman. In 2024, he took his own life. Turned out he had a secret mental health issue. And when he went, it ended up taking all the passwords and everything for the company. Long story short, I was able to keep Medicine Man going for almost a year before I couldn't do it anymore. And so I lost that business. And then soon after, my wife got laid off from hers. And so we were, struggling then. I was trapped up in Minnesota. I'm located down in Texas, but originally from Minnesota. And so I was up there taking care of my family when my wife lost her job. And then another friend died. And basically, I've been running Foraging Texas at a loss because as my training as a chemist, I was still making good money. And I could, supplement it. I was doing okay. And then with the wife having the job, we were comfortable. And then everything went poof. And so we're burning through our savings and everything. I'm close enough to retirement. If I can hold on for another 2.5 years, I can at least start, taking Social Security at this age. But yeah, it's I saw one of your questions was, can a person make a living as a foraging instructor? And the answer is hell no. It's not a popular enough thing, and you can't charge enough. People are cheap. I'm sorry, it's the truth. Back when my kids were taking piano lessons, I remember thinking, damn, I wish I could charge as much for the foraging classes as the piano teacher charges. But I found if I do that, people just don't sign up. So it's not a thing. And now lately, ever since COVID, it's become a very saturated field because, one thing I noticed, because I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'd see someone, they'd be in like 3 of my classes, and suddenly they were advertising themselves as a foraging instructor. And it's like, flattery is the sincerest form of compliments or something like that. And most of them burned out after a year because they just couldn't keep up the pace and they didn't know the stuff like I did. Bragging there. So to answer the question, yeah, it's been rough, and I'm doing it because at this point, I'm 58. I'm not going to get a job back in industry. They're not going to hire someone with my decades of experience when they can get someone cheaper and they can do the same thing. So, it's make or break our time. It's like this or, living in a van down by the river. So, sorry, I didn't mean to dump all this on you, but it's you're right. It is life. I still know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. A person asked me what it's like, and the closest I can say is it's like being an artist that has to create. If you stop them from doing what the art that they are driven to do, they would go bonkers. And I know if I stopped connecting people to nature, it would be bad. So, Gen X, muscle through, something will work out. I will figure it out. That's what it boils down to.
What would you lose if you stopped teaching plants?
My whole purpose of being. Like I said, and I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I tell people I'm the luckiest person you'll ever meet because I know why God put me here. And it's just to reconnect people to all these miracles that are around them, these things that we have become separated from. And they say right now, the average child can name 100 different corporate logos and maybe 2 plants if one of them is a strawberry. So and that does not bode well for nature. That does not bode well for the human race. It does not bode well for anything and anyone. So I'm going to just keep going, and what happens, happens. I've made peace with my life.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
When things are difficult and heavy, are there plants that you turn to for support?
So I'm the type, going back to Medicine Man Plant Company, one of my really popular concoctions was the Serenity Pill, which just helped people deal with anxiety and stress and so forth. And I found if I took it, I got lazy. It's like, you know what, this thing that's bothering me, it worked great. I call it basically, I don't give a pill, because I didn't. When I was taking that, it's like, whatever. And then if you ignore a problem, it doesn't get better. So I find in the end, it's better. In my case, I feel for me to just, head on, nose to the grindstone, work it out. And so the closest, I do take things like creatine and NMN and, different things to help with energy. So not necessarily plant, but still nature-based supplements. So I take goldenrod every day. I take the components of the brain pill every day. So I take a lot of stuff to optimize my power and my strength and my endurance and my my brain and just keep going. So
less about I just want to feel like calm and peaceful, and more about I want to just optimize my ability to function, that caveman thing, so I can go out and take on the tiger and jump the wall.
I mean, the history of the human race has been one of struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways we are more designed for struggle than we are designed for leisure. But if you think about all the progress we made, it was all just attempts to make our lives more comfortable.
Yeah.
So, and I thrive I'm Gen X male, I'm just gonna, let's just get her done.
Yeah. So in times of like fear and anger and grief, what would a caveman do?
Muscle through. I mentioned this a long time ago on some podcast that one of the great sources of literature for inspirational quotes are comic books. And one in particular, there is a quote that I quote to myself quietly all the time that I got out of a comic book, and that is simply Hulk smash. All right, there's a problem. Hulk smash.
Smash. Yes. Okay. Got it.
Hulk smash. Yes. And, all right. What would the Hulk do? He would smash his way through. Mentally, physically, awesome. Whatever. So, he's not going to give up. He's going to keep pounding on the problem until he takes care of the problem.
Got it.
And that
Got it.
seems to have worked very well. It worked well in chemistry. It worked well in, you know, in a way in marriage. It's not physical violence or anything like that, but not giving in. Just keep going. Keep Hulk smash. I will get through this. I will overcome.
Mm-hmm. I can relate. That makes me think I am such a blue vervain person, that type A list maker who has a hard time asking for help. But when I take blue vervain, I lose my motivation. And so that same thing you're saying, that's so important to me that I'd almost rather, find where is that anger or that anxiety or whatever it is and use it as fuel rather than sedate it and make it go away, because that's what's worked for me better.
Yeah. So when I do want to relax, I have a huge network of friends. I have the best friends in the world, and we will get together. There's this bar we like called Backwoods Saloon, and it is a backwoods saloon. They got a patio overlooking a swamp with alligators in it. It's awesome, so things like that. We'll just go there for the evening. Usually I have a really mediocre live band that is trying really hard to sound good, and it's like a minor league baseball team. It's like you root for them, even though because they might not be the best, but they are out there. They're doing it. They're putting themselves, and it's just fun. And that's something I really push, along the whole caveman experience. One of them is you need a social network. You need a group of people that you can hang out with, multiple times a week and just chill amongst them. Drop the load, pick up theirs for a while. It helps. They talk about the third place. People have home, they have work, but they no longer have a third place for socializing. I'm blessed because I have Backwoods Saloon, I have Excalibur Brewing, and I have Inspire Rock Climbing. I go rock climbing 5 days a week, and the group of people there is just awesome, very supportive and everything. So I'm, as troublesome as things get, Hulk smash, friends help, away we go.
Good. Love it.
That's what a caveman would do. He would, talk to his friends, and away we'd go.
Switching gears just a little bit, talking about what you see as the future of foraging in Texas, especially if people seem to be less interested in learning foraging, which, if they're not willing to pay for a class, that kind of says that maybe it's lower on the priority list. So how, first of all, just like the world, the physical environment, how do you see the environment changing? And do you think that that's going to impact available plants and how people interact with them? Like right now, we've got this horrible heat wave and Godzilla, El Nino, and climate shifts. Do you see any of that as impacting the future of foraging?
So in certain regards, they have all been working out really well for plants. I like to bring up the analogy: what happens in the wild when the rabbit population increases?
There's more wolves.
Exactly. More wolves, more bobcats. When a food source increases in nature, the things that eat the food increase. Mm-hmm. Carbon dioxide is plant food. And even NASA has said, the greening of the earth over these last 30 years has been amazing. The plants are loving it. The overall climate change has still not, it's been less than 0.8 degrees Celsius. It has not been enough. The long-term change is much less than a day-to-day swings. And so the plants are just going, you're feeding us. This is awesome. So I have seen, if anything, a higher diversity in plants around, and healthier, bigger plants. And so it's kind of been a bonanza in that regards. The issue in Texas and in a lot of states is where can you forage? And that's always been the thing, because in like state parks, it's not allowed. And this goes back to what's called the tragedy of the commons. Have you heard that economic? So what that is, if there is a free resource available to everyone, whoever grabs it first wins. It's just human nature. It's not just human nature. It's even bacteria do the same thing. And so a lot of states that had kind of lax foraging rules, like New York, California, Minnesota, they are finding now that their parks are being stripped, because a lot of restaurants have a thing where if you just show up at the back door with particular plants in a bag, they will give you $50, no questions asked. And they start making, some pretty exotic meals. And I got to say, even the same, there are unscrupulous herbalists out there. Echinacea rustling has become a big problem across the Southeast because echinacea is a wonderful medicinal plant. Its main powers are in its root. It used to grow wild all over the roadsides and so forth in fields, and it's disappearing because, again, there are a small percentage of herbalists that will pay you for fresh roots, no questions asked where they came from. Out in Louisiana, they caught a huge tree rustling ring where they were going into the national forest, chopping down slippery elms, collecting the inner bark and selling that medicinally. So finding the right balance of public accessibility without stripping nature is a problem. And that's why in Texas, I honestly, I kind of like that you're mostly, not completely, but mostly limited to private property where you have permission. Up in Austin, there is Festival Beach Food Park, which is a permaculture food forest created in the city of Austin, where people can go and forage for free, no questions asked. Here in Houston, the Willow Watering Hole Green Space is working on a similar system. In the Big Thicket National Preserve, the current superintendent is allowing the harvesting of nuts, fruits, and berries. And in the national forests, you are allowed to harvest mushrooms. So there are certain places where they're allowing it. One thing I've been doing, are you familiar with Hip Camp?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so Hip Camp, for those of you who don't know what Hip Camp is, it's like Airbnb for people that have property where they're letting people come out and camp on their property. And one of the things they do to entice people to come to their property is offer extra stuff for a small fee. Like you can get, 10 fresh chicken eggs or have tea with a horse wearing a hat or things like this. I've seen some where they offer fossil hunting and artifact hunting. And so I've been reaching out to different Hip Camp owners and saying, would you allow foraging on their property? And they think it's a great idea. So there are places available that people can go. It also, to really be a good forager, you have to step outside your comfort zone and start talking to people and meeting people, talk to your neighbors and so forth. And I like that aspect of it too, because again, so many people claim they've lived next to the same other family for 20 years and they don't know their names. And that's horrifying to me. How can you live in a community and not be a community? And so I find if we get someone new in the neighborhood, they'll get a knock. Hi, I'm not crazy. This is my book. Your previous, owner let me harvest these weeds from your yard, and in return, they didn't put fire ant killer down. Are you up with keeping that, relationship going? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. But you got to get out of your comfort zone and meet people. And I find that is something that has become very difficult for people. They have a lot of negative thoughts in their head about how other people see them. And I always like to point out to my daughters, when you're, in a group setting, how many people are you looking around and judging because of X? And they go, well, no. And then what makes you think they're judging you because of Y? And it's just, get out of that head. People are cool. We saw with I talk so much. We saw with the World Cup here in Texas and in Houston and the other cities, how welcoming and loving the average person was to this person that said, I want to know about you. I want to know about your culture. I want to know about your food. That's how people are. And somehow we got convinced that they're not like that. Yeah. So foraging, especially when you have, like a copy of my book and say, hey, I see you have this plant there. It's edible. This is why. Here's proof. Can I eat it? And people go, wow, that's really cool. So going back to way at the beginning there, we talked about how there isn't a demand. There is a demand for this knowledge, but it's opportunity costs. If they focus on this, they can't do that, and finding that balance. I'm up against TikTok. That's what it boils down to. Anyway, back to you.
No, I've done that. I've knocked on people's door, and like the other day, you have all this passion flower growing on your fence. Can I harvest it? And they're always interested. Why do you want it? And what are you going to use it for? And so it's always kind of fun. And I've been, I guess, surprised and pleased that people do want to know more about it. It's just kind of reaching them and kind of making it available in a way that's comfortable for them to consume. And I think attention spans are getting smaller, and it's more snacking than actually getting deep, but not everybody. Yeah. So 20 years from now, what do you hope that people remember about the work that you've done?
20 years from now, I plan on still doing it. I mean, to put things in perspective, both my parents are 90, and Dad sent me a picture from a few weeks ago. He was out turkey hunting. He got himself a nice old turkey, and then later on, he was out trout fishing, and he and the guy he was with got their limit of trout. My family is very active into old age, and I'm doing everything I can to maintain that. But in the end, I was asked once, so what do you want on your gravestone? And simply this: he helped people. Because that's not just reconnecting them to nature. I'm a Red Cross disaster response volunteer. I've been in the hurricanes and so forth, giving people shelter, all that sort of thing. I just have this drive. People are awesome, and I want to do what I can to make their lives better. And that seems to be a worthwhile goal in life. So maybe it's egotistical, maybe it's a little prideful. I don't know. I see a need, I fix the need.
Do you have any tips for somebody who's just starting out?
Oh, yeah. So when you first started out, how you said you took the book outside and you're going to go and find a plant, that I was just saying that is such the wrong way to go about doing it. And let me just say, so even though I'm located in Texas, the book covers all of North America. One of the cool things about East Texas, it is the second highest plant diversity in North America. And so it's very easy to find plants that are found everywhere else. So don't just think this book, Foraging, is Texas-based. It's all of North America. But the trick when you are learning to forage is you go about it in a very specific process to harness the dopamine of your brain that rewards you when you get something right. And so the process is you start with the trees. You step outside your door, you look around and see what trees are around you, and you identify them. And I will say with trees, most trees, the phone app plant guides are pretty good. Maybe not enough to eat it, but you get the picture of the leaf, the bark, the fruit, the nut, whatever. It'll be pretty much be able to tell you if it's an oak or a maple or an ash or a sweet gum or hackberry or things like that. So you learn the trees, you find out what trees are around you, look up what are their edible, medicinal, or poisonous properties are, and now you know all these trees around you, and you got this thing, and you got okay, this isn't so bad. Next thing you do is the landscaping plants, and sometimes the apps work on that. A lot of times they don't. Still take a picture of the landscaping plant, go down to the local nursery, ask them, what is this plant? And they'll go, oh, that's this one right over here. And you write down the name, you go home, you Google edible medicinal uses of Elaeagnus, and presto, you find all these food uses. And so you figure out all the edible landscaping and medicinal landscaping in your neighborhood. Because again, it's very easy to do. Next, you go after the wildflowers. And Texas is famous for its wildflowers, but every state is proud of its wildflowers, and every state has multiple books on wildflower identification. The best ones are organized by flower color. It's because a lot of times they originally came out, they were like alphabetized by scientific name. And so if you didn't know the scientific name, you had to flip through every page. But when they're aligned by color, you just open to the purple section of the book and go through and find the flower. So once you've identified the wildflower, again, back to Google, horseman, edible, medicinal search, and it goes, whoa, it has all these great food and medicine uses. So now you got trees, you got landscaping, you got wildflowers, you got all this knowledge already, and you have all these wins. Your brain loves wins. You're feeling good because you need that now when you start identifying the small weeds, because that's where it becomes difficult. There are great books. And then if you go to the foragingtexas.com website, I have it organized by trees, bushes, weeds and wildflowers, vines. And actually, vines are a good one too, because there's really, in the scheme of things, there's not that many vines out there. And so again, the identifying the vines, you just type in, vines of Texas, vines of Minnesota, vines of South Dakota, and you'll usually get a list of maybe 10, 12, 20 different vine plants. And then again, you start matching the structural features and figure out which vines you have around you. But by starting with the easiest and building more and more difficulty, it's like learning any skill. Like piano, you start with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. You don't you don't start with Rachmaninoff or whatever, you Phantom of the Opera type stuff. And that's how you go about learning foraging. Just little win stacked up over and over and over and over until you got knowledge. It's awesome.
Start with the trees and then work your way down. Good tips, good information. How can people learn more about you?
The center of my empire is foragingtexas.com. And from there, currently 265 plants and mushrooms detailed. Each one has 12 structural features to help you identify it. Range maps at both a Texas county and a North American state and province level. If there's any mimics, and don't even get me started on plant mimics, because there is no such thing as a plant mimic once you've matched like 8 structural features. But people don't trust themselves. Recipes and what time of year to find it, depending where you are, and all this sort of stuff, all that information. Then there's also links to all my social media, my Instagram, my Facebook. I'm on Substack. I do a lot of caveman health type information on Substack, and also recipes for wild foods and just professional caveman-y type stuff. But the core is Foraging Texas. From there, you can find everything else.
Foragingtexas.com is where people find you. Okay.
Yep.
Well, listeners, if this conversation made you look at the plant world a little differently, I'd love to have you join me as we continue to explore herbal resources for East Texas and the surrounding areas. So subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with someone who loves plants. And if you'd like more practical herbal education besides Foraging Texas, you can also sign up for my email newsletter at gracerootedherbalist.com. Thank you, Mark. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Stay wild.